We're recording. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. And we have a special guest in the studio this morning, the Director of Public Works, the Town of Portland, Mr. Ryan O'Halpin. Ryan, how you doing? Thanks for coming down.
Good. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Awesome. Well, we know that basically you've been involved fairly recently with the town. You just came from the private sector not too long ago, and one of your charges as Public Works Director, obviously, is which falls under your purview, is the water and the sewer departments, or the wastewater departments. So tell us a little bit about your day job. First of all, I know you came from the private sector, so why don't we start there and tell us a little bit, how you got into your occupation and going forward.
So, a lot to answer there, but I'll start from the beginning, I guess. I majored in civil engineering in college.
Uh-huh.
And coming out of college, I was more interested in bridge design and working on bridges, and I ended up working for Lane Construction as an estimator.
Okay.
And Lane does a lot of big projects, heavy highway, heavy civil work.
Are they out of New Haven?
They're out of, used to be Meriden, then they moved to Cheshire.
Okay, there you go.
And I was working estimating. I was in the office 10 hours a day, 7 to 5, and it was a tough job.
Yep.
You're basically just drawing lines on paper and figuring out exact quantities and putting pricing to it, which was, I learned a lot, but it wasn't for me long term.
Yeah.
So I ended up... I applied to O&G, and O&G, I got a job in the field as a project engineer. So I did some office work, and then I was out in the field actually seeing work go on, and I got put on 2 jobs in Norwalk and Stamford, New Canaan. And down there, basically just oversaw all the field work and made sure we were getting paid for everything. That's the big thing when you're working for a contractor.
Yep.
Make sure the money's coming in.
Everything's billable hours.
Yeah. So learned a lot, though, seeing everything, talking to the crews, talking to the guys that have been doing the field work for years. Learned everything about how to build a highway, build a bridge from start to finish, whether it's rebar, concrete, asphalt, earthwork, underground utilities. Helped build a power plant after those 2 projects in Stamford and New Canaan. That one, we did a lot of underground utilities. We did all the water, all the electrical, all the storm water, the drainage, everything.
Basically all the site work.
Yeah, and I was the go-to guy for our surveyor.
Uh-huh.
So surveying, you're involved in every single aspect of the job, and it's all critical. It's all needed today.
Yep, exactly.
High stress stuff, working 10 to 12 hours a day over there. And then got put on the Hartford job, working on the new exit 29 interchange from I-91 to I-84 going to Boston.
Okay.
It used to be a single right lane exit, became a double left lane exit.
Uh-huh.
So we built a brand new flyover bridge going to the Charter Oak Bridge, widened the Charter Oak Bridge, and widened 5 bridges before and after the Charter Oak Bridge.
To get to it, yes.
To get to it, correct. So that job, I learned even more, and I got put in charge. I was a superintendent on the night shift.
Yep.
Which it's different. You're working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. You wake up around 1, 2 p.m. and your phone, you have 10 text messages, and you got to start calling your bosses and figuring out exactly what they want you to do that night.
Sure.
So it was almost working. If I'm not sleeping, I was working.
Yeah, that gets tedious after a while.
And but it was a great job, and the amount I got exposed to on that job was even more than the power plant, and so where I started, prior to that, just building a highway.
Sure. Well, being an engineer and so forth, and being in the field, there are kind of totally parallel universes, and a lot of times engineers per se, what gets drawn out on paper a lot of times doesn't work in the field when you get there, so you got to see both parts of that and say, it gets challenging because a lot of times these engineer draftsmen, okay, they'll design something, okay, and once you get out in the field, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, and I think every designer knows that you're going to hit things in the ground. You don't know what's down there, and you
Sure.
can't do test pits. You can't figure out exactly how the soils are. You can't figure out exactly where the rock is. You could do borings, but it's always different.
Yeah.
Every time, and every contractor knows it. And when you're dealing with traffic and on a night-to-night basis, and something is going to go wrong,
Sure.
everyone's ready for it. You just got to be ready to pull crews, go help someone that's in need. You need the road filled in. You need a hole filled because traffic's got to be riding on it at 6 a.m.
Got it done. Get it done.
High stress environment, and inspectors were great to work with. We worked with AECOM on the project. We worked with the DOT.
Sure.
And that project ran very smooth.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Fast forwarding for that, obviously that job was stressful. What made you, come to work for the town of Portland?
So while I was working there, just working the night shift and everything, I started looking at what my options might be in the area. And actually the director of Public Works position opened up in my town that I live in Cromwell. And that got me interested in the position because I saw, basically, I check every box on the qualifications to do the position, and it's something different, a little more challenging, but I go back to normal hours.
Yes.
Which was huge for me, and I liked being the idea of being part of the community and helping the public. Mm-hmm. And being more interactive with a local area rather than jumping all around the state, and you don't even know where your next job's going to be.
Sure.
There's a lot of question marks and a lot of high stress staying at O&G. It was a great company, great position. I loved being there, but I think there were too many question marks, and if I was going to have to work the night shift again on the next job because I did a good job on this one, you don't want to get boxed in that way. So I didn't get a call back from Cromwell. They let me know they hired someone else, and then Portland had opened up about a month or two later.
Yeah.
So I applied, and I actually heard back in a week or two.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, after 2 interviews with Ryan Curley, I got hired for the position.
Nice.
And I was real excited about it, and still am. So I started back in August. It's now May.
Yeah.
So 9 months later.
So being director of Public Works, just so everybody knows, you're wearing a lot of hats. Okay, not only water and sewer, but you're talk about all of the other purviews that you have too.
So 7 divisions. So we have the highway, which involves every roadway, every town road in town, and then you have grounds, which is every park, every lawn around every town building, everything associated with any grounds or trash pickup that we need to do around town, such as Main Street. Then you have vehicle maintenance in charge of every vehicle in town. Then you have building maintenance, so every town building that's not a school.
Yep.
In charge of all the HVAC, all the maintenance, making sure everything is functioning at every building. And then you have obviously the big ones, water and sewer.
Yep.
And those, it was new to me, to be honest. Water and sewer I was only exposed to in college.
Yep.
As far as water resources engineering, water quality engineering, knowing the numbers side on designing systems, but very different from what we actually have to do day to day and getting the maintenance done and trying to locate projects and get everything fixed so we have a functioning water and sewer system.
Right, right. Well, and again, from a standpoint of dealing with both water and sewer, now you're dealing with regulatory agencies that have, each in their own various requirements, both on the water side and the sewer side. So tell me how that adjustment went.
So yeah, it's I've learned things. Some things I missed, honestly, in the beginning. I didn't really have a schedule of everything I needed to send over to DPH, DEP, and there's quite a few things involved, along with permitting and our interconnection with MDC. We have another permit that needs to be renewed by the end of the year.
Yep.
I just finished our CCR, which is our Consumer Confidence Report.
Yep.
That we do annually. And that went over well, but there were some changes I had to make. I had to, the DPH had contacted me back that a few things needed to be added that were actually new this year that weren't on last year's CCR anyway. So there's been little things like that that I'm learning from DPH and from DEP. But as long as you keep in touch with everyone, I think...
communication is huge.
Yeah,
especially
you just got to communicate with everyone.
Yes, well, as you know, you deal a lot with, the DPH, and I've had quite a few members of DPH on this podcast. One of the first ones that we had on the podcast was head of DP at the Water Supply Division, Lori Matthew. So I know you deal with her quite often, as far as in relation, and she's the top of the food chain when you get the water supply up there. But regulations are huge. And then, going over to the wastewater side, that's a whole nother, bailiwick there from a standpoint of you're dealing with a different agency. You're dealing with the Department of Environmental Protection and so forth. So tell us the contrast there.
So they're mainly the DEP is worried about our effluent.
Yep.
So the influent comes in, everything gets treated at our sewer plant, and then the effluent goes out into the Connecticut River.
Uh-huh.
So that needs to get tested. We need to make sure we're doing everything we're doing to disinfect and clean the water.
Yep.
So everything is clean. So we need to send test results over to DEP. They're involved in inspections every so often, and they've been good to deal with as well.
Well, again, the communication is huge. Various regulatory requirements, and those regulatory requirements change year to year because, oftentimes you're getting into new legislation as far as, nitrogen removal as far as on the wastewater side. But, one of the big buzzwords now on the water side, obviously, is the PFAS and lead and copper service lines. And okay, so, tell us how you're dealing with all of that.
So I'll start with the lead and copper service lines. I recently went through we have 2,300 services here in Portland.
Yep.
And I went through the full list, and every galvanized service line I assume to be a galvanized requiring replacement, which means there's the possibility of a lead gooseneck off of the main, which it was common for years,
Yep.
In the early to mid 1900s. That's what was done until everything switched over to copper.
Yep.
And
lead being more pliable that you can, have elevation changes, whereas, the galvanized is more rigid. And, once you get on the elevation, then you can go on with the galvanized and, get to the house or the curb stop and so forth. But those lead goosenecks are more pliable and a lot of time are more susceptible to, basically leaking, plus the corrosion factor.
The corrosion factor. Which is what the concern is, and the water quality side of the, each service. So it services each residence pretty much in case anyone needed to get filled in on that. And I came across, I think, 120 services.
Yep.
That were still galvanized according to the records that we had scanned in 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
So our water supervisor, Bill Lynch, had gone through the list that I came up with and narrowed it down to, I think, about 60. So half of those had been replaced over the last 5 years.
Okay.
And we're actually in decent shape here in town. I did apply for DWSRF grant funding
Okay.
to replace the rest of the services, at least on the town roads. It gets a little more complicated with the ones on Main Street and Marlborough Street, as those are state roads, and the repairs of the roadway become very costly when you're dealing with concrete pavement,
Yep.
full depth, and then milling and paving in a lot of locations, which may cause a full mill and pave of the road.
Right. Yeah.
Depending on what the DOT would require.
Yes. Well, especially on 66 Marlborough Street, that's 12 inches of reinforced concrete, which is I can remember many nights working on leaks on that, trying to get through the concrete and getting down and get through the rebar and all that kind of stuff, which was very, very tedious, time consuming. And we didn't have the technology now going out and getting a hoe ram, and breaking. We did it with jackhammers, so that was a little bit more on the labor side and tedious. So, yeah, that wasn't fun.
A lot of times they don't let you use a hoe ram on the concrete pavement in fear of cracking areas that you're not working in further down. So with O&G, we did a lot of concrete pavement replacement. And you have to saw cut the full depth, and then you have to remove it in a way that doesn't
impede,
shake the whole roadway, so you're not cracking anything around it. Which basically we put these monkey fists. You drill core holes into the concrete, and then you lay in these monkey fists, and you have to just work it out with cables, attached to the excavator. And you just have to lift them straight out.
That piece.
Now, when it's very warm, that doesn't happen often. And when you get this project started, you got to finish it. So what we ended up doing, we had guys with jackhammers jackhammer out a corner.
Yeah.
And then we put a ripper tooth there and we popped them. And that also, you're not using a hoe ram, then you're not, smashing at the road and causing any cracking in the surrounding concrete. So we were able to do that. But it was either lift it straight out or basically pop it.
Yeah.
After doing some light jackhammering.
Yeah, the DOT now has a lot more stringent regulations now than they used to have in the day and so forth. Now, as far as paving requirements, obviously, doing any repairs as far as both on water and sewer, obviously you have to adhere to, a lot of the construction regulations, and depending on if it was town road or state road, but those can be intensive as far as that goes. So, when you're, what kind of maintenance as far as on the water and sewer systems, are required, that you get into?
So on the water side, we're looking to replace asbestos cement pipe around town. That's one of the main goals we have on our 5 to 10 year plan.
Yep.
Asbestos cement pipe, it doesn't necessarily put asbestos into the water system.
Right.
So the issue is not the water quality. The issue is that when those pipes fail, they fail catastrophic.
Yep.
They're not springing a small leak like you would see on a copper line or a ductile iron or a cast iron line. You're going to get a full blowout. You're going to get
blow out a section.
Yeah, a large hole, and you're going to lose pressure in the system, and it's going to be a all hands on deck, long replacement.
Yeah, usually at that time it's cutting out a piece and then putting in a length of pipe and so forth.
Yeah,
to go from there.
Yeah, with a couple of clamps and. That would be the main goal. A lot of the pipe is older, as you know, here in town. So just getting around and replacing sections of pipe and replacing these valves are the number one goal right now.
Sure. Well, and the other thing from a budgeting standpoint, as you know, the town of Portland, gets probably 60% of its water through the MDC interconnection. So you're on a bubble there, trying to balancing the utilization of our town-owned well versus, taking water from MDC. So tell us how you manage that.
Yeah, so depending on the time of year, our well right now has a lot of water in it. The gauge is relatively high from, a lot of rainfall over the winter, rain and snowfall. And without it being hot out, there's not a lot of evaporation. So everything is staying in the ground. Whereas the summer months, last year, when I had started, the well could not run because the gauge was so low.
Right.
We couldn't draw anything out of the well, so we are getting 90 to 100% of our water from MDC, which is what we kind of anticipate every year, I would say.
Right.
So right now we're running the well as much as we can because we know in the summer months we're not going to be able to.
Right.
Now there's also a minimum amount of gallons we need to get from MDC as part of our interconnection deal with them, which is 146 million gallons, which would be approximately 12, 15 or 1.5 or no, that's got to be 15 million gallons a month.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Right around there.
Yeah.
So we try and hit that mark as much as we can. But the idea is less from MDC this time of year, more in the summer, and then try and hit it on the mark the last few months.
Well, obviously, we can produce our own water for a third of the cost that we're buying from MDC. So, obviously, the more that we can use our own water, but again, with that pay or take contract, you're
we've got to hit the minimum.
You got to hit the minimum as far as that goes. So,
yeah,
and again, our gravel pack well is been in existence for many years. It's at our Public Works garage. So, that's a basically a gravel pack. It's a 60 foot depth, and it's back in the day we were good for $500,000 a day, but I think we're probably closer to about 350,000 a day now, I think.
Yeah, I think on the average we're getting like 400,000 to 500,000
Good.
still these days. But yeah, it's a 66-foot well. I think it was put in the 50s.
Yep.
From what I remember, I think around 1955. And we are currently looking for other water sources here in town. We have GZA hired to find alternate water sources, and we have test wells going in next week. So it's an exciting time.
Okay.
We get to see, other water quality and potential sources of water here in town. And we may be able to, renegotiate our MDC contract for emergency use only, but we can't really have those discussions until we know what we can get
supply
on our own.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, that's part of your purview as far as in relation to Public Works Director. Not only on the water side, but the wastewater side. Now, what type of obligations on the wastewater side as far as maintenance and testing and all that kind of stuff?
So on the wastewater side, the sewer plant, we had a 20-year upgrade, I believe 23 years ago. So right now we have things that are in need of maintenance. We currently just finished the engineering for the clarifier, to the two clarifiers, which the clarifiers basically the sludge settles in them.
Yep.
Prior to aeration and disinfection. And those tanks, there's a lot of rutting. There's some rust on some of the metal components. The weirs, I believe, need to be replaced.
Yep.
There's several things to do. So that should be going out to bid. And it's going to be a costly project.
Yeah. But, we need to do it.
We need to do it.
Obviously, if we're going to be in the wastewater business, it's the same thing. We got to be in the water business. Okay.
So not only working on the sewer plant, we also need to work on our pump stations. We have 3 sewer pump stations in town.
Yep.
The 2 we're going to be working on are Coave Pump Station and Riverview Street Pump Station. The Coave Pump Station would be the larger part of the project. We're going to replace the pumps, the control panel, the VFDs, everything in relation to that pump system and the surrounding infrastructure with those pumps, because the dimensions change for the pump itself. So everything around it has to change, including like the check valves and the gate valves.
Right.
To get that operating good, we did have a couple pumps fail over the winter, this past winter, which caused us to do a 1-week bypass of the station, which I did have to report to DEP.
Well, that's another part of the regulations.
Yes.
You got to keep them apprised of all of the...
So that is something that hasn't happened as far as our chief operator has been here, in the past 35 years. So I was the one lucky enough to be in charge at the time.
Well, I can remember it happened, I think.
And it went very smooth. Jim did a great job,
Yep.
and our highway guys helped out setting everything up and set those pumps up. They stayed in all night. It happened at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And they were here all day the next day.
Yep.
So
Developing that, temporary pumping system to bypass that pump house so you can get things flowing, from there. So.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's going to be a backup, and there's going to be a whole lot of people calling me.
Yeah, unhappy people calling you.
Yeah. So anything we got to do to prevent that.
Great. So basically, on the whole premise of the podcast, Ryan, okay, is obviously the labor market, not only in our industry, but a lot of industry is become very, very tight. To become obviously a certified operator, wastewater or water operator, okay, we've got to get. No pun intended, filling the pipeline here and getting things. So, what advice would you give to students? Okay, either getting out, going into college, or in college, and so forth, maybe to attract or consider, a possible career within the water or wastewater industry.
So the number one thing is that college is not necessary to have a career in wastewater and water industry. Mm-hmm. You need to learn, you need to take courses. But a college degree is not necessary. If you are interested in getting involved with water quality, anything like that, I would recommend going for civil engineering, similar to what I did, except you could focus in on the water resources, environmental side of the engineering. But yeah, it's something I think each person needs to look into.
Yep.
And there's enough resources out there, including this podcast, but out there, you just Google search kind of what you're interested
Sure.
in. And I think you could find, either courses, it could be technical courses.
Yep.
And
one of the biggest,
go that direction.
Yeah, one of the biggest, as far as in relation to, again, being certified as a water, either on the water side or the wastewater side. Okay, we have two institutions that are in Gateway Community College, which is down in New Haven. In fact, one of the curators of the water program, Wes Winterbottom, has been on this podcast. Also, there's Goodwin College up in East Hartford that is also a resource that students can look into for possible, courses to get certified as a state operator and so forth. And again, you don't have to, be a college graduate. And the career itself is a very stable career. It's a lucrative career, and it's not a career that you can outsource. You need boots on the ground, okay, to fix the leaks, to make things run every day. So, that's, one of the things that, high school students and even students that, embarked on a college, to look at possible, career avenues as far as that goes. So the other thing, too, on a personal side, what do you do for fun?
For fun, I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
So I was always surfing, skateboarding, snowboarding.
Okay.
Things of that nature. I don't surf or skateboard anymore, but I still snowboard in the winter.
Okay.
And then in the summer, golf. I enjoy golfing. I enjoy.
Hey, you're not too shabby at golf. I can attest to that.
Not too shabby. I need to work on it a little bit, especially coming off the tee. But I enjoy golf, and then just hanging out with my wife, my dog, going on hikes, and just hanging around the house.
That's great. I think. We did had the pleasure of playing golf with you on our Exchange Club golf tournament, which is a great day, and we got to do more of that because that was a lot of fun. Go from there.
I agree.
So to go from there. All right, Ryan O'Halpin has been in the house, ladies and gentlemen, and again, This is the future of the water and the wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. And I'm your host, Dave Kosminski. And Ryan, we're going to have to, because I didn't turn this camera on right away. Okay, we're going to have to put a still shot in there until we turn the camera on. So I just want to let everybody know to go from there. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. And again, Mr. Ryan O'Helpin, Director of Public Works for the town of Portland, who is in charge of both the water and the wastewater among 6 other departments in town, was nice enough to come down and share his expertise. So thanks again, Ryan. We'll see you on a rebound. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.